Apple, Facebook and other big tech stocks tank, weigh on Wall Street. Big tech was slammed Friday as investors took profits from the group, which some fear has become a massive market bubble. The sell-off accelerated in afternoon trading, with the Nasdaq falling 2.4%, and names like Facebook and Apple, down 4%. The S&P tech sector was down 3.3% Friday but was still up 18% for the year. Goldman Sachs on Friday released a report on the top 5 outperforming mega-cap names in tech with some warnings on valuations and concerns that their volatility has become extraordinarily low. In fact, the stocks had become closely correlated to safe haven plays, like bonds and utilities. Goldman